Well, hey everyone. Thanks a bunch for listening in today. We thought it'd be important to talk about TMS and technology. And the reason is, I come from all operations here at Aborn and Company. And prior to being at Aborn and Company, I was working at two or three different trucking companies. So I'm really all about heavy operations. And when we here at Aborn and Company decided that we were going to go and find technology, find a TMS that was going to bring us visibility to our customers' orders as they became shipments, be able to track them through to delivery, and then manage that carrier invoice. I was the person that truly thought TMS was the answer to everything. And so we did. We went out and we did a whole really large research. It took a lot of time to decide the technology that we wanted to use for TMS. And I thought we were ready, we were done, and we were going to drive all this value to our clients with this technology, bringing the visibility that they needed and that we wanted in order to manage their supply chain in a best practice. And boy, was I wrong. We actually house a whole lot more technology. We build our own technology, and now we have a bunch of really smart people in data science and development to help take care of all this visibility that we need. So if you're like me and you think and you're shopping TMS or you're thinking about a visibility tool and you think you might need one, I want to set you up for the success that I didn't set myself up for. Thank goodness. With me today is Steve Aborn, who's a whole lot smarter than me when it comes to technology. And he actually had the know-how and the wherewithal to really say, look at, this isn't the answer to your prayers, Jill. We've got way more work to do in technology. So Steve, if you wouldn't mind, just share with us a little bit. So we got a TMS, right? And then we started trying to integrate our customers' orders into it. Talk to me about how you think about technology. And I think this may also turn into a little bit of a data discussion too, right?
Yeah, sure. I think I think when we were kind of making the decision about what we were going to do in terms of technology, right? At that point, we were still kind of a consulting company. We were doing a lot of kind of rate negotiation, and it was a big shift for us to kind of get into the day-to-day management of, managing loads, managing rates, managing carriers, managing pickups, deliveries, kind of all the things that we do today. I think one of the things that technology that we liked about the idea of technology kind of was the automation and the scale, right? So I think for us, it was kind of two real benefits when we were thinking about technology that helped us to make that decision. Is we were looking for kind of business process automation, right? So automated tenders, invoices that match rates that are out there, right? So we saw all of the work that was going on in the back end to match carrier rates, to report and to do those things, and it was really hard. So I think when we were kind of making those decisions, kind of the vision was to go to a place where we could automate a lot of our processes, right? So we could lower our labor costs, we could be really efficient, and we would have kind of what we talk about internally as visibility. So a lot of what we're talking about is almost that data visibility. So really strong data capture and data reporting processes so that we would be able to pass information, internally, externally to our carriers and to our clients and customers. So I think
I have a question with that.
Yeah, sure.
So with just a TMS, what you said was, what we learned is it's really, really hard. What was really, really hard?
Yeah, sure. I think on the data storage side, for us, we thought that the TMS, we would be able to do a lot of reporting out of the TMS, right? Mm-hmm. So we thought that we would buy this tool, we would integrate with the clients, and then we would be able to pull out all this great information, right? And I think what we found really quickly is when we started pulling out the information, just logically as operators, we would look at it and be like, that's wrong. Like, that's totally wrong. The way that the system was kind of capturing and storing the information versus what we knew as operators to be real were kind of two different things. And I think part of what we found was there was a bunch of kind of data warehouse stuff going on in the background on the TMS side that we didn't really have a good handle around. So we were pulling information we were either putting information in the wrong spot, which was a huge problem, or we were looking for information in the wrong places, which was, they're kind of
Yeah.
two sides of the same problem, but we had both of them going on, right? So it made it really, really hard to figure out where our problems were, to kind of to root cause it and figure out, okay, what's the issue? Because everything that we were doing was wrong there for a bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it was hard. And part of that, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, is so the basic concept of what a TMS can do and that visibility. So you say, okay, we're going to get an order in. Well, that order comes in, and like you said, it may be consumed differently depending on what shipper is bringing the order in. And so putting some standards there. And then when we got onto the carrier side of it, even when you come down to acknowledging a tender, you think either the API or the EDI is a standard and it's done the same way all the time, but it's not, right? So that we'd be getting these replies and responses electronically, API or EDI from carriers, and they weren't being consumed the same way, sometimes because they're just not coming in the same way. So there's just no standard, which means then we have to build technology to say, look at this tender this way, or look at this tracking message this way, and then bring it in and put it in this spot in TMS. Is that the right way?
Yeah, and I think part of that, one of the mistakes I think we probably made is we assumed, because this was transportation technology, that these folks would have a pretty good idea how these markets work. And I think what we found out really, really quickly, and has been, we've learned this the hard way over and over again when dealing with these technology folks, even though they're in our industry, they don't really know what's going on. A lot of them don't have operating experience. The ones that do have really light operating experience. So there's not a lot of commonality and experience between the folks that we thought we would be relying on to do a lot of this almost interpretation, right? So I think
it's true.
That we had to build some expertise in was bringing in our own technical folks, training them. I mean, that's a big part of what we have to do, just constantly training them on our experience and our opinion as operators, right, to get what we want. Something as simple as a shipment, right? In the world that we live in, we live in transportation, right? But in our technology providers world, a shipment doesn't mean a shipment. It means something totally different. It means a data object, which doesn't make any sense, right? If you're going to sell.
No, and then as the tech company is trying to explain that to you, and me as an operations person, I'm like, what are you talking about? That's a shipment.
Stop saying that.
You're not speaking the same language, and you're never going to solve problems. And that's why we now have the data science people who can speak that data language, but we're also training them in ops. So when the technology says, well, no, that was a pallet, not a skid, we can say, no, those are the same thing. And we want them in the same spot, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's hard. And we've seen so many times where folks are looking to buy the technology. And so the first thing they do is they go to the tech world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even sure what they want. And it really, really can cause you some problems. One, you're either going to buy this technology, it's going to be way too expensive, and you're maybe going to use it about 10% of its capability because you don't have, and again, it's not because we're smarter. We learned the hard way that we've kind of built an internal team at Aborn and Company of data science people, true developers, load planners who are executing all of this stuff every day. Along with additional technology that we bring into the TMS to bring in all that visibility. What would you say, though, if you're that company that is working in Excel files and they're working in spreadsheets and they're maybe emailing or calling carriers to pick up freight, and then on the back end they may be clamoring, banging in some cost of those shipments, where would you tell them to start? Immediately I think they're told, go find some products. But in my mind, step one is, what exactly do I need to do, and really scope that out? Would that be the right place to start, or what would you advise?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably having a really tight buying process, kind of identifying your pain points. So, and what you're talking about, maybe the rate storage in the tender process is kind of like what you're looking to solve for. Other companies might have that problem plus a billing problem, kind of like we talked about.
Yep.
Other folks maybe are looking for better ways to store carrier rates, right? Like we're
Yep.
looking for pricing tariffs all the time. I mean, that's all good stuff that a TMS can solve. So it kind of, I think, to answer your question, it takes a look inwards and trying to, so you're trying to be in a best practice, which is a good instinct, right? Like I work in transportation markets. I want to support this with technology. Okay, but what does that mean, and what are you looking for? And then how, like any good buying process, how are you going to tease out the answers from the different providers with some kind of due diligence process, right? What questions are you going to make them answer? Are you just going to jump on a bunch of demos? Maybe that's not the best process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And having in that process, so when you decide what you want, you kind of tease out what you're going to need, really having the whole team involved in the buying process, I think is super important, because you need your operators who are going to use the technology. And look at, if that technology doesn't work, if you're in operations today and you've been given technology to use and it doesn't work, you're just going to go around it. You're not going to come back, right? I'm not going to go back. If I'm in load planning and I'm trying to book freight all day, I'm not running back to the data science team to say, hey, look at this broke. I'm going around it because I'm trying to book freight all day long. I don't have time. So I give up on the technology that maybe your company has really invested in. So in this process of, maybe you have a TMS and you want to make it better, or maybe you're looking to shop visibility tools. I think it's crucial that you have all of the stakeholders, anyone that's going to be touching that technology, part of that decision and part of the process of standing up what you want and then going into the market to try to find it.
Yeah, and as you're kind of saying that, I think the other thing that I'm thinking about is it probably makes sense to define roles after TMS implementation too, because like you talked about, I wouldn't recommend going in and buying. I mean, part of the problem is these are really expensive tools still. I mean, you're talking about, for most, if you want a serious tool that you can work towards automation, work towards broad integration, so that you can pull information from different sources. You can automate those business processes. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, potentially $1 million up front, and then you're talking about, depending on your size, a very significant cost to keep that up and running. So,
meaning payroll, so you buy it, you spend a lot of money on it, and then you have to hire people to take care.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is I wouldn't recommend spending all that money unless you have, kind of a dedicated, technical plan, right? I mean, how many times do we go into these things with our customer base, and they say, we want all of this, but we want it to talk to everything, and we want perfect accuracy, but you don't have any technical resources. You're like, so what are we supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's the right instinct to want to buy this technology. It's great, right? It's very powerful, but I think you need a very tight buying process, and then kind of a support plan on the back end, because just like transportation, when we implement a new carrier, they're not always going to work perfectly right away, right? There's, we need to, transportation world, sometimes you got to work with receivers, sometimes you got to work with the carrier, with the shipper, to try to figure out how to make the process work. And I think it's the exact same thing on the technical side, is who is that team that is going to help you buy it, and then what are their roles on the go forward basis, because you're not just going to be able to set it up in 6 months and then turn the lights off and everything's going to be beautiful. We need a lot of help.
I think, not to overwhelm people, but you also bring up a really good point when you talk about the carrier functionality. So not only do you need to understand what your technology can do that you're going to buy, you also need to understand what your carrier's technology can do.
Right.
Because they too can be drastically different, which is why you end up in a broken environment at times, even with the best of internal technology, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, think about all the operators on a daily basis that are interacting with that system.
Yeah.
I mean, you potentially have a couple of ERPs, a bunch of different WMS systems at different facilities, maybe some 3PLs involved, 20, 30. Sometimes we get data sets where companies are using 150, 200 carriers, right? And those
Right.
are all connections into that system that if you're going to do it right and you want it to work and you don't want to go around it, that need to be measured and managed, and there needs to be open lines of communication. We see this all the time. Carrier X works fine on Monday. Tuesday morning, we show up at work to do our work, and nothing's working. Everyone's screaming and yelling. Well, it turns out that Carrier X made an update on their side, right? And then all of a sudden, nothing works.
Well, and then that speaks to the kind of, when you talk about you need people to technically man.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's the technical?
You need somebody who's knows APIs and EDIs. You need somebody who then really can write code, right? So they can manipulate that data in the right way outside of TMS for all your data analytics, because there's so much good information in there, whether it's in the right spot or not, right? It's really good information. Yeah. It can be really overwhelming. I don't know how you felt through the whole process. And I even think for us, we're still doing it.
Totally.
Every day there's new technology, there's new functionality. There's an ask of a client that we've got to then go build some technology or bring in some more technology to make that happen. And it just makes us better. But that's the other thing, is I think there's never a beginning and an end.
No.
Right.
I mean, at the end of last year, FreightWaves put up that kind of top 25, transportation technology providers. And then we kind of looked at the list and, looked inwardly, and we were working with about half of them, right? So the idea that you're just going to buy a TMS and then, it's going to work, right? And so
that was me.
Yeah, for us. Yeah, and I mean, that was part of that buying process too, right? We learned that. But we're integrated with about half of those systems, right? And we still got a lot of work, a lot of process, a lot of fun stuff to clean up. But it is, I mean, it is hard. I mean,
it is.
That's another 10, 12 integrations, another 10, 12 data sources that you need to manage, right? So now you're at a TMS, you're at, 10, 12 integrations, you're at 50 carriers, you're at, 10 warehouse. I mean, the complexity on this to manage it just becomes, there's a lot of places where things could break, right? So I think that's kind of the bigger plan. The bigger point is there's a whole lot of stuff that breaks. So you need to have a really kind of tightly defined process to bring one of these things on. And then you need to have a pretty tightly defined kind of management structure and process.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's why I wanted to talk about it today, because as hard as it is, it's also really empowering when we figure it out, when we can help clients figure it out, and carriers too. Keep in mind, if you do this right as a company and you get yourself in a digital environment and you bring your carriers in this digital environment, you're driving value to the carriers as well. And that's important. That's really important when you look at transportation as a whole. If you're going to drive some value to your carriers, and you should be working in a strategic relationship with them, that's good news for you, and it's good news for them. And what does that do? That helps alleviate costs overall. So when it comes time to negotiate with your carriers, if you can say, remember we were in Excel files and banging phones and emailing spot quotes and getting rates on paper, that's all going away. We're moving to a digital environment. That drives tremendous value and time saved with carriers. But we could talk about this all day long. And I think the message I wanted to deliver today is that, if you're in this place where if you're thinking about getting technology, you should be, right? If you're not, you're going to be left behind. And I just feel so empowered that we've figured a lot of this stuff out and continue to do so, and know that it's always going to evolve, and we've set our structure, our business that way, that I just feel so excited about sharing this with others in the industry who maybe don't know where to start. I mean, we're in it right now. We have a company, right, that came to us and said, we're shopping TMS, and you want to throw your hat, your ring in the hat, right? And they don't really know what they want, and we can see it already where they're going to end up really unhappy with whatever they buy, whether it's us or not, because they just don't have a clear path. And so I think that's the message we wanted to chat about today, is if you are thinking about it, or you have it and you're not utilizing it like you should, we can help.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about a lot of the challenges, but I mean, if you think about it, we talked on a high level about some of the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Data storage, broadly able to integrate, kind of real-time visibility to data. There's a whole bunch of things that are really good, but I think from an operations perspective, just if you look at us, right? If you look at what we've been able to do, at the end of 2018, we had the exact same kind of planning staff from a staffing perspective. We had the exact same number of folks working at the end of 2018 that we do in that office right now. We just had our biggest month, last month from a volume perspective, and it was two times as many transactions as we were doing in 2018. Now we have the same staff, but what we were able to do is figure out how to automate, how to get things in and out of that system, in a much, much, much more efficient way. So I think the learning there is, it can work, but
it is hard, but it works.
Yeah, but it totally works.
So,
and again, I think you see kind of an emerging trend here of people more and more positioning themselves as kind of managed TMS providers, right? And so really what they're communicating is what their value is, and what they're trying to sell you is, we've set up this process, we've invested, we've built the automation, we understand these tools, right? And we understand the operations business. So we're able to look at your business as freight operators. We're able to understand your needs, and we're able to get your needs into that technology in the right way and support you with the right staff that, if you're doing $5 million, $10 million, $15 million a year in annual freight volume, your business might not be big enough for you to support, a couple of different development types for your TMS only, right? So I think, that's kind of why you're seeing, this managed TMS trend, is because there is a ton of value there. There's a ton of things you can automate, kind of throughout that order fulfillment cycle, but it's really hard, and it takes a lot of work. And some companies aren't able to really achieve those economies of scale to see the value of the TMS. To your point, they end up in a broken system that they use half of, right?
Yeah. No, and transportation itself has always kind of sat in an organization, oftentimes in the wrong place, where somebody kind of just got stuck with the freight carriers, right? Now they're stuck with freight carriers and trying to figure out this technology, and it's overwhelming. Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. Well, awesome. So thank you for jumping on with me. I think we definitely, hopefully, can help bring some clarity to how this whole thing works, and know that what works today will be different tomorrow, because there'll be something new that comes out, and just try to stay ahead of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
And that's our show. You have a question for Jill or Steve? Let us know in the comments section and we'll reply right away. In the meantime, thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.